Well, last few principles as I wrap this up. Remember that prophets have safeguards also. When we say prophets can make mistakes and they won't lead us astray, and how do we continue to balance that? Well, prophets do have safeguards. And one of those safeguards is the concept of the united voice of the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles. This is a standard that is established in section 107, verse 27 and 28, all the way through verse 30 of the Doctrine and Covenants. That's a revelation when the quorum of the 12 apostles was established. And they say that the quorum of the 12 forms a quorum equal in authority as the first presidency. And then in those verses it says, all the decisions of these quorums must be by the unanimous voice of the same to have power and validity. Now they do make an exception in that those very verses that a majority may render a decision, but the goal, the ideal is prophetic unanimity. Now, again, trying to be open and frank, there have not always been times in the history of our church when that guideline has been followed. There have been times where there have been unilateral decisions made by a president of the church, or even maybe by the first presidency. For example, back to Wilford Woodruff, when he announced that the church was going to end the practice of plural marriage in America, in the United States, some of the quorum of the 12 learned about that while on a train, reading in the newspaper. And they later had to be brought up to speed and briefed and discussed. And even then, there wasn't full agreement within it. This high standard of unanimity with the first presidency and the quorum of the 12, from the beginning of the Restoration to now, the leaders of our church have grown into reaching that ideal, in my view, and my read of church history. Well, President Nelson taught this. He said that prophets, quote, have counterbalances and safeguards abound so that no one in prophetic leadership can ever lead the church astray. And those safeguards are, one of them is this idea of unanimity with the first presidency and the quorum of the 12. Showing how we've grown into that as a leadership of the church, President Gordon B. Hinckley said it this way, quote, I can assure all members of this church that in the first presidency we follow such a procedure of unanimity in decisions. Two counselors working with a president preserve a wonderful system of checks and balances. They become a safeguard that is seldom, if ever, in error and affords great strength of leadership. He then goes on to say in that same talk, in the 50 years that he has served in the quorum of the 12 and the first presidency, he has never seen a major decision of doctrine or policy or implementation in the church where this concept of unanimity was not followed.